to research. And so there is a lot of monitoring going on, and the impact of this in teaching, particularly numeracy skills, is being studied. So this is something that is definitely important. Everybody recognizes that you cannot just put the technology in the classroom. You've got to help teachers understand. And very often it's the students who can help the teachers understand, because they're very adept at technology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And is there anything else you want to add to the role of technology in the classroom?
I think, as I mentioned before, one can use technology to reinforce learning. So if you, again, use technology like the assessment tools that have been developed to help students understand where they still need some strengthening of concepts, and then you have them, you give them the ability to actually reinforce those concepts through the online tools that are available. Again, that sort of goes to individualized learning, but also helps reinforce the concepts. And again, we're even in post-secondary, so not sort of saying how they necessarily acquire those skills at the K-12 level, but in post-secondary, we're relying on technology to try all sorts of different things, be it what we call the flipped classroom, where some of the content might be available online and the students can review that before they get to class, but usually actually using the class time to reinforce the concepts. So again, I think you can use technology in very positive ways, but I think I agree with Jerry. I think that the point is that you have to know how to use it. You can't just put technology in for the sake of technology. It has to be supported, and it has to have a goal and an understanding, and it's certainly critical for us in helping ensure student success.
We've been talking so much about the role, it's really a combined effort when we're trying to tackle this problem. So the role that parents play, the role that teachers play in the classroom, the role that businesses play in trying to tackle this issue. One thing that really comes up in my mind is that sometimes you can look at numeracy as a social justice issue, because there are a lot of people that don't have the same opportunities presented to them, and therefore their ability to be numerate is impacted. We think about the gender issue, so girls are, most often underperforming when it comes to numeracy and to be numerate than boys. We also look at issues of, children that are coming from a lower income home where perhaps both parents are working and working long hours and don't have the ability to work with their kids and give them some of the most basic tools and understanding from home. So then we're sending that same student into a classroom and we're expecting them to be at the same level as a peer who has a different set of circumstances at home. How do we deal with the equality and the gap there when it comes to numeracy?
Well, just one comment. You said girls were doing worse than boys. I mean, certainly if you take the last PISA results, girls have almost caught up to boys on average and continued their significant superiority in the other elements of the test. But I would say in that case it's more an element of not ability or anything, it's interest. The girls lose interest in it, but there's all kinds of pilot projects. If you change the order in which you present the science and the math, and girls for some reason seem to balk at memorizing the given algorithms, which have almost all been written by men, by the way, and are given a free rein how to solve it, that they get the right answers and they're more interested. So I think there's definitely ways of doing that, but that comes back to the workplace as well, because we actually even had a commission on this recently headed by David Dodge, lamenting how few women were working in the STEM fields. If you look at the National Graduate Survey, not only do you see very few women working in the STEM fields, but you'll notice that their incomes are dramatically lower and their unemployment rate dramatically higher than men. So even the ones that do go, it was actually, if you looked on that and thought that the past was going to be a predictor of your future, it'd be smart for women not to go in those fields, because when they get into the workplace in those areas, they're doing terribly. So there's something wrong, not only in attracting and retaining the interests of females in the STEM fields, but there's something definitely wrong going on in the workplace too, and you have to figure that out, or it doesn't make any sense for them. But again, you can't present a teaching method that was designed by men and expect that the women are going to go along with that. And there's ample evidence to suggest if you do it in different ways, it works out quite well.
I want to just reinforce what has been said, because all of the studies done by EQAO has shown that girls are, over time, because there's been a lot of work done with girls in math, their scores in grade 6 are actually higher Mind you, the scores are going down with both boys and girls in math in Ontario. And by grade 9, there's no discernible difference. But the real issue is what researchers, OECD calls self-efficacy, which means girls' confidence and anxiety about math. And it appears that they have less confidence and and more anxiety in doing math and science. Now, Anne is a wonderful example. Actually, I taught her in grade 13, and I don't think she never exhibited anxiety. But that seems to, but I totally agree. There is not a difference in math and math scores in grades 6 and 9 in Ontario at this point.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues is, in fact, to continue to encourage young girls to stay with the sciences and the maths. And I do more speaking in grade 7 and 8 classrooms than almost anywhere else that encourages them to do that and to just show how many areas, and especially in the math, that you actually need that kind of background. So even though you don't think you want to study sciences and maths, that knowledge and skills comes to the forefront in so many disciplines. And I think quite often it is a matter of confidence and knowing that they can do them. So I'm only hoping that your stats about all of the unemployment and the whatever is one of those really bad rules of law of averages, and that there's some areas where that actually doesn't apply. And certainly in engineering, it wasn't my experience in terms of both job opportunities and pay. The problem was attracting, and it still is, attracting enough young women to go into engineering. And even though there's been so much effort on it, most schools, I think Queen's included, only has about 25 to 30% at most of any discipline in engineering. When I was in school, it was closer to 1%.
Queen's is 1/3, by the way.
It's 1/3 now? Okay.
We're one of the
there you
highest
go.
in Canada.
Okay. Well, my son actually graduated from geological engineering, and his class was 50-50 about 3 years ago in geological, so that was quite amazing.
That's impressive.
But I think we do have to continue to encourage them and ensure that they have the confidence to know that they can do it. So I never had problems solving those algorithms that were supposedly developed by males. I think it was a matter of having good teachers and having the interest in continuing.
Yeah, engineering is the oddity because, well, and if you take all the bachelor students in Canada, 59% are female, so females are dominating in total, and the ones that used to be decisively male, like medicine, is more female than male, and business is not quite 50, but it's close to 50-50, but engineering has hardly changed in 40 years.
No, it's gotten a lot better.
A bit better. But
It
it's
used
still,
to be 1%, it's
A lot
now
better.
25 to 30.
okay. Statistically significant.
But it hasn't gotten to 50%, which there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Do we have another question here? We have a couple of questions, so I'm going to ask the runners to come over here. We have Allison has a question. I'm getting good. I think I know almost everyone's name in the room. That's really impressive.
Is that on? Oh, that
Yes,
is
it
more
is.
than on. Rhiannon, I think you were reading my mind, and I'm just hoping that we can go back to the parent question. I don't want to offend any parents here because obviously you take an active interest in numeracy, but I don't want to say there's a cause. I'm going to call it maybe a correlation between parents not feeling confident with math skills and feeling like they can't assist students at home. If it's a time issue, I have so many students that are going to tutors when it just takes a few minutes for parents to help them at home. And just from a time perspective, there's only so much that we can do in the school time, even with the increase from the provincial government. So how can we support the parents? Is there PD that we can do for them to try and increase their enthusiasm and also their confidence with math skills?
Well,
That's you, Jerry.
School districts have done a lot of work in providing parents with ideas and resources to help them support the children in their particular classes. TVO has, I believe it's called a homework club, but they have a lot of excellent resources that parents as students can access. There's something called the Khan Academy, which many people use to help students acquire specific skills. Anne referred to John Mighton, who's in the audience today, and John has some excellent resources for helping students, as you say, climb the ladder without missing a rung in the ladder. And so there's a lot of resources available. I would suggest if you are a parent, talk to your school principal and ask him or her how they can help support you in it? Because I'm sure they'd be very happy to do that.
I think that, again, I feel as though we still skirt the issue and we say that there's a lot of resources available. And I speak from my own personal experience in being raised in a single-parent household where I was in a lower income situation. And I know for a fact that my mom was not going to be taking time out of working 3 jobs to come home and go make an arrangement to, download materials or go get materials to help her understand how she could help me. And that's sort of where those kids fall through the cracks, is because it's just not going to happen. You can have all the most amazing resources available in the world, but when you're dealing with a parent who's got to put food on the table and, has a lot of other stresses and a lot of other circumstances in that household that are playing into the issue, the resources are meaningless. So I think that one of the things that needs to happen, and I'm certainly no expert at all, but I think that we do need to figure out a way where we can give those resources to kids like that at school. We have to take it out of the parents' hands, because the parents, some of them are not going to do anything about it. They just aren't, and it's true. So I think that we have to look at each, population as having their own set of circumstances. We need to be aware of that. We can't put a blanket approach again and say that all students are going to react the same way to some of these amazing resources, and I'm not downplaying how incredible that they are if there's active, parents that are able and have the time to use them. Is there any other questions that we can take from the floor? I know there's a gentleman here in the blue shirt. I'm going to know your name now, and I'll know it again for future.
Thanks. My name is Ravi. My question is about, we've talked about stakeholders and all these people, what they're going to, what's the role of the student in all this? I love math. I love the beauty of the solved equation. But if you were a good math student, you loved doing it. And it was regardless of what the 40 other kids were in your classroom, or whatever the circumstance was. What is those habits of those students who are really good at math? What is the role of the student? We can't just expect, they just need to show up. What are they going to do as well?
Does anyone have any comment to make?
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, what's the role of the student? But I think that comes back to what we were saying about it has to seem real. And the student who doesn't want to take the math is because it seems entirely abstract. And it's just these memorizing the facts that doesn't seem to have a relationship to their life. It's not that hard to make the relationship to their life. We've discussed it, all these practical things in life. You got to go get a mortgage and interest rates change, and what's that do to your life? And how you do your monthly budget, and this numeracy comes in all kinds of things, not just in what you might do in your work, but in living your life. But bring that into the math as opposed to it just being so dry. And I mean, heck, I'm in the dismal science, and my conceit is I don't accept for a moment that I can't teach economics in an interesting way. And if you can teach economics in an interesting way, surely we can do math.
I think Anne made a very good point. They go into schools in grades 6, 7, and 8, and they tell students how important it is. It's really important that students understand maximizing their choices. And one of the ways they maximize their choices is they continue to take math. And I think the challenge is for educators to make math engaging and to encourage experiential learning, to encourage them in things like financial literacy, coding, and things that are really relevant to the real world. So I think that kind of experience is very valuable.
Anne?
One of the things that we do, and I don't know if this would apply to grade school, but I don't know why it wouldn't, or high school, as part of our retention initiative, again, we found that peer tutoring is sometimes very important. So if you've got students who are strong in a particular subject, and if they could share that knowledge or their approaches with other students, and what we've started to do is bring those peer tutors into the last hour of a class. So it's not that the student has to go and find that peer support or that tutoring support, but the peer tutors go in and they take the last hour of class to work with students individually. So I would see that as a wonderful opportunity maybe to impart some of that enthusiasm that some students have and that natural ability to others, and peer-to-peer learning sometimes is very effective depending on the situation and the particular student.
I think that's a fantastic idea, because I think that that's a great way for students to be able to learn from one another. So we have a question down here, then I'm going to come to you, and then I'll come there. Yes?
Hi there, my name is Diane. So I'm one of those individuals that went to teachers college, and yes, I wasn't confident in math. And for me, teachers college was a bit of a marathon. They kind of glossed over some of the subjects, especially math. I actually did exceptionally well in math when I was in teachers college, but I found that I didn't really get into what I needed in terms of having that confidence to be good at teaching it when I was doing elementary. I'm now actually working post-secondary, so I didn't actually do it to the extent that I had initially intended. But I'm just wondering, I know some provinces, they have a much more extensive length of time for teachers college. And I think that's going to be happening in Ontario. I'm just wondering how that's being addressed for those teachers that may need a little bit more of a boost when it comes to teaching math, especially in elementary.
There's a program that's being introduced in Ontario, a 2-year education program, but my understanding is the amount of math studied by teachers in Ontario's Teachers College is significantly less than in other jurisdictions, and hopefully that will change with the 2-year program. Is that the question you asked? I'm sorry.
Yes.
In terms of time?